one poll, but this would suggest, with some other evidence, that there's been some movement towards Joe Biden since the felony conviction of President Trump. You agree?
I agree. In fact, take a look at the evidence.
So that is Karl Rove, who's about to try to have a little Katie Porter moment or something, to provide a bit of a warning, a bit of an alarm for Donald Trump and the Republicans because of the movement that he and others have seen ever since Donald Trump's felony conviction. So here is the evidence that Karl Rove is going to present.
Here it is. These are the polls since June 1st. If they're in red, Donald Trump won them. If they're in blue, Joe Biden is leading. And if they're in green, it's a tie. And take a look from the first of the month, where it's Trump up by 1, Trump up by 2, Trump up by 1, Biden up by 1, a tie, Trump up by 2, Biden up by 2, tie, Biden up by 2. So there's been a trend since the May 30th guilty verdict in the New York case. In fact, if you look at the Real Clear Politics national average, which is 11 polls, national average, it's Trump up by 0.5%. And if you look inside that, of the 11 polls, number 9 has him up by 5 points, and number 11 has him up by 2. When those get moved out, assuming that we continue to see close numbers, we're likely to see that lead dissipate.
Okay, so first of all, if I could provide a little bit of feedback, just go with the second one, because your first one where you're like, you look at this movement, I'm like, I don't know, it's some ones and twos. It doesn't really look like movement, but nitpicks aside, he's not wrong. He's terrible. He's a bad guy, but he's not wrong here. There has been movement in the polls, at least on the national level, ever since those convictions. And he's right, in these sort of rolling averages, as some of the older ones drop out, we're gonna see an acceleration of that. Now, it doesn't mean that the race is totally different than it was. You look at some of these recent polls, like here is Morning Consult. There's over 10,000 people in the sample for this poll, by the way. And this has Joe Biden tied with Donald Trump at 44%. 8% want someone else, so there's still that third party vote or write-in. And 4% are unsure. Only 4% unsure is pretty crazy, but this is a fairly reliable poll. It has a margin of error of just 1 point because of the large sample size. And that poll found Trump taking 3% more independents. And among voters from 2020 that transitioned and who they supported, 5% went from Biden to Trump and 3% went from Trump to Biden. Both of those are always weird to me. That you would, it's only been 4 years and you're changing, but anyway, it's not massive movement, but you are seeing some movement, and we can take a look now at the swing state polls where the evidence is not as strong. Now, bear in mind, some of these swing state polls by Trump had a big lead, so he could still have a 2 or 3 or 4 point lead, and that can be movement. But we are seeing a little bit of a change because of the felony convictions, which means that in 2.5 weeks, when we have the actual sentencing, if he goes to prison, you would expect to see a stronger version of that because it'll be even more real than just the conviction. That's my belief. Sharon, what do you make of it?
Karl Rove is a ornery fella, the brain, the man who really gave MAGA the blueprint for a takeover of the world by going and doing it first at, school boards and city council and blah, blah. And so it's an effective thing that they're still doing today. As ornery as he is, though, I get afraid when he makes predictions because he does know what he's talking about. And he's been in the mud with some of these same types. And so I think that we have to listen to Karl Rove and hold our nose while we're doing it. But we have to, we got to take note here.
Yeah. Yeah, and look, this is the sort of thing that you'd expect. It would be very weird if a former president can be found guilty of 34 felonies and it not have any effect. But we can only expect the effect to be so big because we know who these people are. We're not really learning anything new at this point about either Joe Biden or Donald Trump, either on their personal lives or their fitness for office or their policies. The external shocks have to be something truly weird. And with Donald Trump, because of all of his needless criminality, he at least has a few of those potential coming. Thanks for watching our video. Did you know that you can support our show by becoming a subscriber? Just click the subscribe button and also ring the bell so that you get notifications when we're live or when we post new content.